Long before the kingdom of Israel was united under strong rulers, the nation faced constant threats. Israel still struggled to establish itself, surrounded by powerful enemies on all sides. Amongst all these rivals, the Philistines in particular, were relentless. This people of seafaring raiders and settlers established city-states on the coast and sought to expand. They wielded iron weapons when other nations, including Israel, still used bronze swords and axes. They had an army of seasoned warriors, and among them was their greatest champion, Goliath of Gath, a 10-foot giant, carrying a spear with an iron point big enough to pulverize any man's skull. His presence alone struck fear into the hearts of even the bravest soldiers. In the valley of Elah, 20 miles outside of Jerusalem, the colossus Goliath was waiting for a worthy opponent. The Philistine and Israeli armies watched from opposite sides of the valley in the overlooking hills as the giant spoke. From the valley floor, he looked over to the Israeli soldiers and dared any soldier to confront him. He shouted,
"Why do you line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine and you the servants of Saul? Choose a man to fight me. If he can kill me, we will become your servants. But if I kill him, you will serve us."
The army of Israel was frozen with fear. Who could stand against such a giant? Even King Saul, once bold and courageous, felt the weight of doubt and uncertainty. His leadership faltered, and his men could sense it. Israel was still a fragile kingdom. The Philistines, armed with iron and ready for battle, were poised to crush them. But far away, in the quiet hills of Bethlehem, there was a young shepherd named David. He was the youngest of 8 brothers, often overlooked, but chosen by God for a greater destiny. Goliath stood between the two armies every day for 39 days, exclaiming his challenge. On the 40th day of Goliath's taunts, David's father sent him to bring food to his brothers, who were fighting in King Saul's army. When David arrived at the camp, he heard Goliath's challenge and saw the fear in the eyes of the Israelite soldiers. Something stirred within him, a righteous anger, not out of pride, but out of love for his people and for God.
"Who is this Philistine that he dares to insult the armies of the living God?"
David asked defiantly. David's words quickly spread through the camp and soon reached King Saul. Saul, troubled and weary, called David to him. When he saw the young shepherd standing before him, Saul was filled with doubt.
"You can't fight this Philistine. You're just a boy, and he's been a warrior since his youth."
David responded to his king.
"I've been watching over my father's sheep. Whenever a lion or bear came and took one, I chased after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep. The Lord who saved me from the paw of the lion and the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine."
Saul, seeing the determination in David's eyes, finally agreed. He offered David his armor, but it was too heavy, and David set it aside. Instead, he took his staff, chose 5 smooth stones from the brook, and carried his sling. His faith was not in armor or weapons, but in the power of God. David walked out to face Goliath, and when the giant saw him, he laughed with scorn.
"Am I a dog, that you come at me with sticks? Come here, and I'll feed your flesh to the birds and the wild animals."
David answered Goliath's taunt with a steady voice.
"You come at me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel's armies whom you have defied. Today, the Lord will hand you over to me, and everyone will know that there is a God in Israel."
The air grew tense as the armies watched. David reached into his pouch, took out a stone, and slung it with precision. The stone struck Goliath on the forehead, and the giant fell to the ground. Silence filled the valley. David ran to Goliath, drew the giant's sword, and ended the battle with one swift stroke. The Philistines, seeing their champion defeated, fled in fear, and the men of Israel chased after them, claiming victory. With one stone and unwavering faith, David, the shepherd, became Israel's hero. His victory didn't come from his own strength, but from his trust in God. From that day on, David would be remembered, not just as the boy who faced a giant, but as the one who stood with courage, believing in the power of the Almighty. This is only the beginning of David's story. By killing Goliath, soon David's name was known and praised throughout the entire land of Israel. Enormously impressed by David's victory, Saul accepted David into his court and made him a commander of his armies. He would go on to have many military victories, many of them deserving of their own telling, only growing his popularity within the nation. And eventually, the boy with the sling would grow up to become a king.